Tonight, once again, we find Jared Bowen in the Berkshires. Our series continues with a visit to Edith Wharton's home, The Mount. You might remember a few years ago, its whole fiscal foundation was on the verge of collapse. But today, as Jared Bowen shows us, the home and its finances are restored.
If ever a house could serve as an autobiography, The Mount is it. The home of novelist Edith Wharton, it is Edith Wharton. Situated on a hill overlooking a lake in Lenox, Massachusetts, The Mount was conceived by the writer from the ground up. She dreamed its location, guided its aesthetic principles, and designed her elaborate gardens. It was, in a sense, her own House of Mirth, which she wrote while living here.
And this house was an opportunity for her to really do things the way she thought they ought to be done. And that was to really champion a return of classicism, symmetry, balance, proportion, lots of light, and really opening up spaces, and to make them livable.
We spoke with The Mount's Kelsey Mullen in Wharton's drawing room. The house's largest room when it was built in 1902. She used it to entertain frequent guests, like fellow writer Henry James.
They were very, very good friends, and she matched him in literary skill, I think, towards the end.
Wharton designed her home practically. No space went unused. It was large but not grand, and it favored her predilection for privacy. Despite carefully crafted images of Wharton as a writer staged in her library, she actually wrote elsewhere.
Edith Wharton had always done her best work writing in bed. That was where the creative genius inspired her. And so I think in building the Mount, she created a space where she could have the privacy she needed to get her best work done.
She did love her library, though, and a full 2/3 of her collection has been returned to the Mount.
What does her library tell us about her?
It's been a remarkable window into Edith Wharton's intellectual life. She was reading across genres, really a voracious learner, and she was reading in 5 different languages, sometimes ancient Norse when she was feeling up for a challenge. She was reading books on astronomy and theology.
Her books are riddled with marks, notations, and destruction. Dismayed with one publisher's choice to feature illustrations in one of her books, she found a remedy.
In her own copy of the House of Mirth, you can see on the title page, she has crossed out the name of the illustrator in pencil, and then all of the illustrations have been razored out of the book.
Amazingly, Wharton considered herself a better landscape gardener than novelist, although that's slightly less astonishing when you see her gardens, which, fully recreated, appear as Wharton saw them.
She built the garden in stages as she was receiving advances from her books. And it was during that time that she's taking these European ideas and placing them in an American context and fitting together a French garden with an Italian garden and an English lime walk, all on the shores of a Massachusetts lake.
All of this is a welcome second chapter to the Mount's history. Threatened with foreclosure just 5 years ago, the home has managed to climb out of its fiscal abyss, says Executive Director Susan Whistler.
We have cut our debt from almost $9 million down to less than $4 million. We are $1.5 million in the black as opposed to $4 million in the red, and our programming is robust.
A footing regained, today the Mount is positioning itself as the Berkshires' literary hub, drawing the attention of writers the world over. Its champions also include former First Lady Laura Bush, whose most recent visit was days before ours.
People read Wharton and realize that, in fact, while a lot has changed, a lot is still very much the same. And she just is so clean and muscular in the way that she sort of expresses it and observes it, that her writing is as relevant today as it ever was.
Meaning this is Edith Wharton's renewed age of resonance.
Jared Bowen is here. Well, what happened there, Jared? How did this thing fall apart in the first place?
I think
that long ago?
They had always struggled. I mean, first of all, there was a lot of work that had to be done to the house. Shakespeare and Company nearby had used it for a long time. It was a girls' dormitory, but so they kept getting further and further into debt. And then finally, in just a few years ago, with the economic downturn, as Susan Whistler said, it was just the time that she was taking over as executive director. And when word got out that they were in such dire straits, I mean, they had to lay off staff. Things were really Dyer, she said immediately it turned around. When people found out, they just sort of flocked. She said one woman wrote an $800,000 check just based on this woman's mother's affinity for Edith Wharton. So I think what they have now is a really strong board and a really strong leadership in people like Susan Whistler, who've been able to financially turn it around, refinance, pay off some of the debt, and position them for a much better future.
So it really is a library. Can people go in and read books? I mean, you can have weddings there. What's it for?
Well, this is what's really interesting. So the house is basically as Edith Wharton left it. It was really in pristine condition. So they've restored the floors, the marble floors are like she had, and the molding, all the paintings and the walls are just as she left them. What's not there is her furniture. So it makes it a very different experience because you can go in and you can walk around her rooms. You can sort of immerse yourself in the rooms. And they're evoked in Edith Wharton's time. They had a designer showcase back in 2000, so people put furniture sort of evoking the period. So you're not seeing her pieces, but that's, again, it's a liberty because they don't have to stanchion anything because you can walk around and experience it as it was.
Oh, but and can you use it for other things, though? Yeah.
They have, first of all, you can tour everything and walk the home, walk the gardens. You can't walk around the library because it is her actual library, which is fantastic. To have all of her, most of her books right there. It's very sad because a third of the collection was destroyed in World War II.
All right, so tomorrow is your final Bowen in the Berkshires?
Tomorrow's our final piece. We went to Shakespeare and Company, where the great American actress Olympia Dukakis is about to star in Mother Courage and Her Children. And I talked to her about that, and here's a little preview where she says it's a little bit different this time around.
When you're young, of course, you have all that energy. So it's like, you can... But what I've learned to do is not to do things with energy, to use my head more about it.
You have a lot in common with her. We'll look forward to seeing her again tomorrow. All right, thanks, Jared. We'll have that plus an effort to have Boston, not the state, control the number of city liquor licenses. That's all tomorrow. I'm Emily Rooney. Thanks for watching.